So, good evening, everyone. My name is Aman. I currently reside in Kuwait and I go to school in FAPES DPS. And this is my partner.
Hi guys, I'm Fadil Kanapat. I also reside in Kuwait and I'm going to the same school, FAPES DPS. We've both had a lot of experience in MUN, and today's session is basically give you guys a brief introduction to Model United Nations.
Okay, guys, now we're going to share a PPT and I hope all of you are very interactive in the chat box. Towards the end of the session, we'll be having a Q&A session. So let's move forward now. So let's start with an introduction. So what exactly is Model United Nations? Now, MUN, which is the short form, stands for Model United Nations, which is a mock of the actual United Nations, which means we basically follow the rules, procedures, and goals of the UN. The point of each committee is to reach a solution to the topic at hand through your skills of communication, debate, and diplomacy. Now, let's understand what MUN is. It's basically a simulation of what goes on in the actual United Nations, where participants, which are called delegates, represent different countries and debate on various global issues. Now, each person who represents a country, again, as I said, they're called delegates, which means you're no longer allowed to use his or her or personal pronouns in this case, and only pronouns that are in the interests of the country themselves.
Right. So a very important aspect of MUN is the research and preparation that goes into it. So through research and preparation, you're supposed to get an idea on your country's foreign policy, which basically means what interests your country. So everything that your country stands for, you must have a thorough understanding of. And you must know the allies that your countries have, as well as the other possible issues with your countries as well. So you can address them in any possible MUN that you have. As well, you must have like a thorough understanding of the topic at hand as well, so that you can speak upon the topic as well. Right.
Now, guys, moving on, we have the position paper. Now, before the actual committee starts, the position paper, as we believe, is the most important aspect of MUN because it gives the EB, which is the board of directors, an idea of what your understanding of the topic is and what your stance on the topic is as a country. Now, in addition to that, your position paper also gives a set of solutions that you would like to propose at the end of committee. So it generally consists of an overview of the problem at hand from your country's perspective, and then measures your country has taken. And at the end, as I said, you propose some innovative and original ideas.
So now we move to motions and points. So an MUN is like a formal meeting. So there are proper procedures that you must follow during committee. You can't just speak whenever you want to, saying whatever you want to, right? So you have to raise your placard, which is basically your country's delegation written on a piece of paper. And you'll raise it, and the EB, which is the executive board, will recognize you. And when they recognize you, you can either raise a motion or a point. So the differences are motions are basically formal indicators of the directions the delegates of a committee want the committee to proceed in. Right. So what that means is you want to give a moderated caucus. And we'll explain what those are in detail later on. But then basically for now, a formal speech. And you want to give them on a specific topic. And you want to know whether the rest of committee agrees with you. So you raise a motion for a moderated caucus. And after the moderated caucus motion has been raised, the committee as a whole will vote upon it in proper procedures, which is from most disruptive to least disruptive. What that means is unmods, which we will again elaborate later, will be considered more disruptive, and you'll understand what that is when we elaborate later. So points are basically like motions, but then the differences are motions are for the committee itself, whereas points are more of a personal level. So the different type of points are point of information. So point of information is used when you want to question another delegate and perhaps you want to state some of the wrong information that the other delegate stated, or you want to ask him a question or for clarification. So you raise a point of information, and if the EB recognizes you, you can raise that point. Next is a point of order, which is raised when the EB makes a mistake, right? So if EB mistakenly follows the wrong rules of procedure, then you can correct them by raising a point of order, right? The point of parliamentary order is also something quite similar, so it doesn't really matter here. Point of personal privilege, right? Point of personal privilege is something that does not concern the committee at all. So say you want the AC to be lowered temperature or two, you can raise the point of personal privilege and ask for that. Say you want to use the restroom, you can raise a point of personal privilege and ask for permission to leave the committee. So that's what motions and points are.
Now, moving on, we have crisis management. Now, crisis management is by far the most exciting part of an MUN. As me and Fadil have both experienced in the past, it's really, it gets the blood flowing through your body because there's constant crisis updates where they bring in unexpected scenarios and they test your on-spot thinking capabilities. So unexpected crises often arise, which tests the delegate's ability to think on their feet. Now, the delegate must respond in a way that agrees with their country's policies and quickly. Time is always running out in a crisis, and to know how crisis works in your committee, you need to ask your directors, or in case you can ask us later on in the meeting.
Right. Next is building alliances. So an MUN is, after all, a mock of the actual United Nations. There are groups which are called blocs, which consider is like a bloc is basically a group of countries which themselves feel like they have aligned interests with the topic at hand. So they come together to form a bloc, which later they try to pass a resolution later on. We'll come across what resolutions are later on. So building alliances is very important since blocs need a majority resolution. And that depends on which your committee fails or passes. So if you have a majority in the committee as a group, right? So if you build alliances with majority of the people in your committee, you already have a very high position in committee. You can raise any motion you want, and when the committee votes on that motion, it will pass because you have allies who support you, right? And it'll make it much more easier for you to carry out what you want as a delegate to be seen in committee and what you want to be discussed and debated upon.
Now, moving on, we see how committee procedure starts. Now, the first thing that goes on in committee is the roll call, which is generally followed by GSL. Now, roll call is used to take attendance as either present or present and voting. Now, what is present and voting? So present basically means if a country gives their attendance as present, they have the ability to abstain in any substantive voting. Now, present and voting means they lose the ability to abstain in a voting, and they have to choose either for or against the resolution, which comes at the end. Now, GSL, which is the General Speakers List, it is used to inform the committee about your stance. Now, this is by far the most important speech as it gives the executive board a sense of what you stand for and how well researched you are. So the points it should cover is what position you take regarding the topic, any further steps your country has already taken, and one thing you should make sure is that giving out any solutions during your GSL, because it can be used by other countries later on.
And just to clarify, so here we mentioned substantive voting. So there are two types of voting, which is substantive voting and procedural voting. So substantive voting is used for things such as resolutions, working papers, directives, etc. We'll explain what those are later on. And procedural voting is, like we said before, it's for motions, right? So when you are voting for a motion, the entire committee must vote, regardless of whether you chose present or present and voting. So now we move on to mods and unmods. So this is basically the body of an MUN, right? Your MUN is just going to be basically made of mods and unmods. It's just going to be mod after mod and then followed by a couple of unmods. So the differences are mods are also called moderated caucuses, right? So they basically formal debate on a particular subtopic within the topic of your committee. So what that means is, so basically, say you have a topic which is, say, humanitarian crisis that's happening somewhere, and you want to specifically discuss the issues that's happening within the prisons of that country, right? So if you want to discuss upon that, you can raise a motion for a mod, right? You say a motion to raise a moderated caucus on the topic humanitarian exploitation in China, for example. Humanitarian exploitation in China. Each speaker time 60 seconds, total speaking time 15 minutes, right? So what that means, raise a motion to talk on a formal debate. So now after that, each country will come up, they can raise the placard and opting to choose to speak. And you can give a 60-second speech here. Since we specified that, you can come up and say that, right? So unmods. Unmods are also called unmoderated caucuses. It is basically for informal debate, right? So when unmods happen, it just basically results into like complete chaos. Because there are no more, there's no more like a formal aspect to unmods, and it's mostly just like any delegate doing what they want to do. But what they're mostly trying to do is building alliances, right? So before we understood the importances of building alliances. So you need allies. And the best way to do that is during unmods, because you're allowed to move around committee, which you're not able to do during mods, right? So you have to move around and you have to lobby with your other delegates. You have to try to convince them to join your side of the argument, right? You have to give them points as to why they should think you're better than the others. And unmods are not on any particular subtopic, right? So you can like use it for anything that you really want to do, get done in that specific set of time. And it's not really like either mods and unmods, there's no obligation to speak, but obviously during an MUN, the more you speak and the better you speak, obviously, the more recognized you get, and that increases your chances for awards, which is at the end of the day, what you want, right? From an MUN. And yeah, and during unmods and mods, you can give out solutions to people to try to convince them why you're better and such like that.
Thank you, Fadil. That was very well put. Now we have resolutions. So what is a resolution? It's basically a formal document submitted by a bloc at the end of the MUN to the executive board. Now, what the main purpose of the resolution is to outline solutions and actions that those delegates want to carry out to try and solve the issue at hand. Now, the whole point of the MUN is coming to the resolution. So at the end, all the countries present in the committee will vote together to see whether the resolution passes or not. Right? Now, an important thing to note is the resolution paper has a very particular format that should be followed. Now, it'll be voted upon, as I said, by the committee as a whole. And depending on the outcome, it'll either pass or fail. So, delegates, the main point of the whole MUN is to make sure that your resolution passes. And through your debating skills, you should make it presentable so that delegates agree to pass your resolution paper. Now, that's the whole point of it.
Right. So now we come to the benefits of MUN. Now that we all understand in a broad way how MUNs work, you want to know why you should do MUN, right? Like, what are the advantages of it? So obviously, it enhances and trains your public speaking skills. You're going to be speaking a lot during an MUN. It's going to enhance your communication skills, right? It's not just speaking on a stage or anything. You're going to be talking between each other during unmods. You're going to have personal communications with other delegates. So it increases your communication skills with like a stranger, right? And the negotiation and diplomacy skills. Negotiation, obviously, again, you have to convince other delegates to join your side. You have to negotiate with other people, showing how you will show them representation. You will give them a certain portion of the resolution for writing, for example, and you have to convince them to get them to your side. And the diplomacy skill just comes during an MUN. You can't be rude or anything, right? Because they'll, again, scare of other delegates. And the ability to research adequately with limited time. So a common mistake during research of an MUN is just going too deep, right? You're going to go too deep and you're going to not have a broad idea of the understanding, but just a really deep understanding of a specific issue of the topic. Which means if the committee decides not even to discuss that specific issue you have so hardly researched upon, it's just going to be a waste of time. And this, the more you do MUNs, the better idea you get on how you should research. And this helps you with like everyday aspects. If you want to research about something, you can just get it done much more efficiently and quickly. It's also used for other matters like adding another level of extracurriculars to your application for universities. MUN is a highly valued extracurricular due to its like diverse nature. It has public speaking skills, communication skills, ability, a lot of things, right? And also comes with like a layer of understanding that comes with MUN. So colleges just like consider it to be a great extracurricular due to its diverse nature.
Just wanting to add to what Fadil said, if you could please go to the previous slide. Now, as he said, it helps your public speaking and communication skills. Now, I think it was the same situation for both of us as we were as we had our first MUN together. we were all very intimidated by our seniors, and even though it was such an intimidating experience, together, that's how our friendship actually started. Together, we were able to overcome those fears, and we're here today doing over 30 MUNs together. Now, I'm really happy that Fadil put out these points because we both have very personal connections to them. If you
Right.
could please
Yeah.
move.
So it's just like a personal journey, really. Once you start doing MUN, it just gets like it just really gets into your blood, really. You know, you just want like another one, and to follow up because it just feels unsatisfying otherwise.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, let's move towards formality. Now, what you guys need to understand is MUN is a very, very formal event. So you have to be dressed in mostly Western formal attire. That's most of the times again. Now, your actions and words must reflect the respect and formality of the event. So there's no allow you guys aren't allowed to use informal language or use vulgar words, etc. You guys must always maintain a professional outlook towards anyone and respect all delegates and EB members of your committee and other committees as well. That's very important to keep in mind, guys.
Right. And by the way, you can be negatively marked for like anything that you don't follow during an MUN. So like if you like show disrespect towards any of the delegates or EB members, right. So that is all, guys. That is basically a general overview of an MUN and its working on how the rules of procedures work and what is the body that goes on in an MUN. For further information, you can contact us, Fadil Kanapat, with that given number, and Aman Praveen Chandra. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Now, I'm sorry, I'm not sure how we can see the questions you guys have put in chat. Let me just cross check. Um, Excuse me, sir. Okay, I'm sorry,
Sorry,
guys.
guys, for the technical.
Some
Yeah.
technical issues. We'll just get back to you one second.